I have spent 10 years trying to fight systems without looking like the crazy person. I learned early on why people don't speak up. It takes vulnerability to talk about toxic culture because you can be seen as weak or complaining. A lot of people won't talk about it, but they will suffer in silence. Any nurse or any hard worker can relate to that feeling of I'm maxed out and I'm also not doing enough. And a lot of times that happens in environments that operate in ambiguity, where there is no clear line, where you don't really know when you can put your foot down and say, that's not part of my job. And that line is terrifying. I've been a nurse for almost 10 years, and I got into that profession with this sort of unrealistic idea that I was just going to be able to go into nursing and just help people. In healthcare, you hear the patients come first. Before I got into nursing, I thought everyone believed that. But hospitals and healthcare, it's a business. You're not prepared for the politics of healthcare. It can be a really big eye-opener. Systems and dynamics are constantly moving. I would ask myself, am I the only one that's feeling like this isn't what I thought it was? But then I'd go in the break room and I hear everyone frustrated about the same things I was frustrated about. So I knew I wasn't alone. I thought, why isn't anybody saying anything? Being naive at the time, I was bewildered that strong, confident, capable nurses were smiling in the face of management and leadership, but then in the break room or with other colleagues, they'd be venting about things that shouldn't be happening. There was a point where I would even question nurses' integrity and think, how can they be treated like this and be expected to do certain things they know they don't have to do, but they still do it? I didn't understand. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to talk to management and I'm going to tell them that you need to bring more people onto the floor. I'm not a manager, but my thought is I know what boundaries we should be having and they're not being held. So I utilized what I knew was available to me, which are open door policies, office hours, people in charge, going to them with my observation. A lot of us are feeling this way. We know that patients come first, but we also have to be healthy to provide adequate and safe healthcare. And I thought I would be heard. I learned later that I'm being considered the problem nurse, the nurse that is resistant, the nurse that has aggressive behavior. I can't prove that I don't because it was during office hours. It was during a meeting. I didn't feel like I was being resistant. I was just communicating my concerns about my colleagues and myself. And I learned early on why people don't speak up. I saw how quickly things can shift, but in a way where you can't really prove it to anybody. The creativity of retaliation is very hard to grasp. Over the years, I've had to continuously shift my approach. I thought to myself, okay, how do I fix this problem? I'm learning that confrontation does nothing but turn me into a distraction from the actual problem. No matter how much evidence or facts you have, you are often turned into the problem itself. I had to stop expecting that people were going to be using their morals and values to guide their professional decisions. We overestimate our ability to change people, as in change their views. This is wrong, this is right. But we underestimate our ability to create environments that can better predict a change in their behavior. People prioritize protecting themselves, right? That's a natural thing. That's not saying other people do it and I don't. We prioritize protecting ourselves. So if I know that my management team and my leadership aren't really hearing me the way I want them to hear me. I know that they are prioritized in remaining in good standing in their own jobs, in their own titles, and doing what they should be doing, right? Visibility is what changes behavior, not persuasion. So I move closer to the environment of accountability. You don't gain leverage by resisting a system. You gain it by understanding what it depends on. In the beginning of my nursing career, I was resisting the system. I was confronting, pushing back for what I thought was good intention. But the problem is the system is powerful. If I confront, I am very easily turned into the problem. How do you speak up, but also keep yourself protected? If you don't remember anything from this talk, remember this. Be nice and precise. Be nice translates to stay professional, because it's one less distraction. And you stay precise, which translates to on record. You are professional and you are on record. You are removing the possibility of the narrative shifting into you being the problem. So I started to ask binary questions that reduced vagueness and ambiguity that was blurring the lines of my protections and my boundaries. So if I needed to ask a clarifying question about what the boundaries of my role or my scope were, it was via email. Good evening, manager so-and-so. I wanted to follow up on what I'd asked you about coverage. I noticed that I've been covering 5 patients the last however long, or I've noticed I've been floating here often. Are you able to confirm if that is a requirement for me? I'm happy to help. However, I'd like to get clarity on what the policy actually is. Be nice and precise is a tool that I now use to clarify what is voluntary, what is required. It has you on record asking a clarifying question that requires an answer. You are now in a space of accountability. There is a very low probability you are going to be bullied, intimidated, or guilted into doing something that is not a requirement of your job on record. Whereas a lot of that can be done in deniable environments, such as over the phone and in person. Whoever answers that question has to think about what they say, because their name is behind it. They're not going to tell you something that's violating rules and regulations. It's a lot different than the answers you might get off record. You hold in your hand a description that's fitted for one nurse, but in reality on the floor, you're doing the job of 3 nurses, but that's not written down anywhere. So metrics are being met, but it's not clear how those metrics are being met. But I think what we forget is the system is also tightly governed by rules and regulations that must be followed. So you might ask, then how do they get away with running nurses to 5%? There's another saying I adopted or created that is, let me find it. Oh, nothing is clear on purpose. When you are being stretched beyond what you should be doing and you end up not really knowing where the line is, you'll notice that it comes with a lot of ambiguity, a lot of vagueness. Should I have to do this? Is this required? Is this voluntary? Am I going to get in trouble if I don't do this? When can I say no and when do I have to do something? Where actually is the line? A big part of nursing culture is maintained off record, open door policy, office hours, meetings on the phone calls, in-person meetings. They are a great source of deniability, narrative shifts. A lot of things are done verbally, whether it's guilting or intimidating or bullying or patronizing. I have seen situations where entire departments have issues with what they're doing and nobody speaks up. There is no break from a patient needing care. This is a 24-hour, 7 days a week, no holidays off job. And nurses are incredible when it comes to going above and beyond and helping. A lot of nurses will say, I'm good. Yep, you can count on me. Anything you want me to do, I'll do. However, it very easily turns from being just this once to a regular basis. You do a favor, you do another favor, and then those favors slowly start to turn into expectations. That's when boundaries start to get eroded a little bit. And you have the guilt of, well, I'm taking care of patients, so I can't complain. We tend to struggle with these thoughts. And over time, you start sort of losing that orientation. Like, where's the line? So nurses tend to blame themselves as opposed to maybe management should figure that out. They are our leaders. And a lot of us have experienced management that do not feel like leaders. But how we participate in this feedback loop is just as important. I started to look from a different angle and say, maybe management is not aware of just how many people have a problem. Because it's a feedback loop and because part of their decisions are dependent on what they see can be handled and tolerated, they're not going to know the urgency of what is lacking if we are always putting on a brave face and not letting them know it's a problem that needs to be solved. The reality is that systems normalize whatever repeatedly solves a problem. When we continue to stretch and do more, and it just kind of goes as much as you allow it to, it becomes just part of the culture that is the baseline, which is what leads to burnout. We're all working cohesively together, no matter how distorted the dynamic is. And that has sort of helped me not just blame. Not only do I often find blame ineffective in the beginning of solving a problem, I find that it is almost a blind spot and it almost takes us away from how we fix problems. When you're focused on who's responsible for the problem, you're shifting focus away from yourself, making the solution of the problem dependent on someone else. I'm not patient enough to wait until everyone sees the light. I want to know how to fix a problem, even if I can't depend on the people at fault to fix the problem. You can't really change people. Not only can you not change people, you can't change how people see things. No matter how right you are, if we try to force anything, especially the way the world is today, we deliver it in a way that literally shuts them down. Almost like we forget how humans work. You don't get far with confrontation. And that was tough for me for a while because I was a hothead for a long time. It didn't get me anywhere, but in trouble and called the problem child. But I also see a problem in not speaking up. The only leverage, if there is any leverage to be had, it is how you participate. We are very good at adapting. If you let the steering wheel go, we're going to drift toward groups. I know all my introverts will disagree. I disagree with myself, but for the most part, we are built to be tribal. This is why things like politics and religion almost seem natural. I have spent 10 years trying to fight systems without looking like the crazy person. And I have done it in almost every wrong way possible. I've wasted a lot of time focusing on who's responsible for the problem in dynamics that I'm a part of. When I said before, nothing is clear on purpose, it speaks to the power of how much gets carried on the shoulders of ambiguity and vagueness. Because when you don't have clarity, a lot of that normalization survives off record because of mass compliance. Not compliance, but people complying because they're afraid to speak up. Being labeled as resistant or aggressive or problematic, I can never fight it. I couldn't prove it because it was all off record. The closer you move to a system's constraints, the more predictable the behavior becomes. I love my job now. I do. I didn't always. I am not liked by everyone, but I am respected. If I break the rules, I expect to be held accountable, but I hold everyone accountable to rules and regulations, and that includes my superiors. So that is the power of collective compliance and what it can do and how it can skew perceptions of Jesus. This is going to be a long video. In conclusion, humans are humans, and systems, good systems, are built with the worst day in mind, not the best day. I love my car. I don't even want one scratch on it, but I would never drive it without a seatbelt because I'm relying on that system to protect me on my worst day. Oh, and there's one more quote that I need to say. Rely on strategies that protect you when everyone's having a bad day. I'm going to say that again. Rely on strategies that protect you when everyone's having a bad day. Everyone is human. We can blame all day. We can blame ourselves. We can blame our partner. We can blame our management team. We can blame our children. But a lot of times, it doesn't fix the problem. Not everything is as intentional as it looks. Anyway, I hope you guys got something from that. I have a crick in my neck. This is the year I was born, which explains why I get random cricks in my neck, just literally out of like laughing wrong or yawning. Anyway, happy 4th of July. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your physical health, your mental health. Hug those you love and hug your kitties and your doggies. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight, and I'll talk to you later.